Three, two, one. All right. Well, how's it going here? It is the Local Service Podcast, episode number 1. Bringing it back. All right. So if you aren't familiar with the journey, I had a podcast called Apples for Lunch. Did that for a while. Then I did a Symphony Advertising podcast, which is my main business. And now I'm bringing a third try. I think the third time is a charm, called the Local Service Podcast, a.k.a. the Local Service Opera, because we put local services on stage. And so this is really going to be marketing focused for local service-based businesses. That's primarily what we work with at Symphony Advertising. So I got a bunch of stories. I get to see the ins and outs of many marketing platforms in different industries. So I feel like I got a lot to talk about and a lot to say. So for today's episode, what I want to focus on is the most successful campaigns that I have encountered throughout my digital marketing career. So I've been in the game now for about 10 years. Granted, on and off. Sometimes I would do the marketing. Sometimes I would be like a side role to it. But overall, since I've been trying to get into the space, from working odd jobs to working in actual agencies, boutique and bigger, to doing my own thing, it's going to span across those ranges. And today's examples, I'm going to have 3 different ones. So the first one's going to be a Facebook campaign that did very well. The second one's going to be a Google Ads campaign that did very well. And the last one's going to be a partner referral program. That's not even digital marketing, but it is literally one of the more successful ones that I've encountered. And then the last one I'm going to do is the influencer marketing one. So let's just dive right into it. So the first one, and these aren't in any order, right? They're all different industries. They're all different successes, quote unquote. So you kind of take it for what it is, but I just wanted to start off by sharing some examples. So number 1 is the most successful Facebook ad campaign I have ever witnessed is actually for a car dealership. And this was back, I think, in 2017 and 2018. So Facebook wasn't extremely new at the time, but it's 2002, by the way, June 13th, 2022. Facebook ads and social media were still kind of like, you had to convince people to do it. You had to kind of explain why it's a good idea. And you still have to do that now, but it's a little bit more a given. So like, you're starting a business, of course you're going to want to create social media channels and have a website. You've been in business, of course you want to start using Facebook ads to leverage your budget instead of going traditional. It's a little bit more, it's easier now to kind of go down the social media route, especially when you see so many other campaigns being successful. But at the time, Facebook ads was still kind of like, we don't think it'll work. People aren't going to buy cars based off of Facebook. And then the car dealership industry within itself is kind of old school. Like, you go in there, they have their media buyers, they have their budget sets, they do their TV commercials, they do their radio ads. They're kind of set in stone, and it's very mass market type of stuff. Doesn't take away, though, from the fact that this was a successful campaign. So here's what happened. They are a car dealership that was sizable, okay? And I'll have bigger, some are going to be, in these examples, there's going to be bigger businesses, smaller businesses. So we kind of touch a little bit of everything. For this business, they had one main location that was fairly sizable. And then they had maybe like, let's say 6 other mini locations that weren't nearly as big, because they were kind of like little lots. But the main lot had several, like 100 cars. Like it was a sizable, dealership. And what we did is we ran many different campaigns, right? This wasn't like we just knew from the get, like, this is the Facebook ads campaign that's going to work. We started off with Google ads. Then we did Facebook ads where we did, there's different objectives. So we did website traffic. We did post engagement. We did local Facebook reach or whatever it was. And within trying those different things, when we stumbled upon, I don't even really know how we got here. I'm just going to share how the one that ended up working. So what we did is we went to the dealership. We took, I think 40 pictures was the amount that you can upload to a Facebook post. So we took 40 pictures with iPhones, nothing crazy. We took 40 pictures with iPhones and we uploaded it. We uploaded to Facebook ads, and what we did was we ran a post engagement ad. A post engagement ad is literally all Facebook wants to do is show it to people who are going to engage with it. And what does that mean? That means that they want to share it, that they want to comment on it, that they want to like it, that they want to go through the photos. Like, we just want people to interact with this ad. And on top of that, we also do what's called call tracking. The phone number that we put on the ad is forwarded to the main business line, but we get to keep the call. We know that, hey, if this call comes through the call tracking, like we get a report as soon as it happens, that there's no other place they could have gotten this phone number. This phone number only exists on this Facebook ad, and you can hear the call, right? So part of that is tying the dots together, right? From the Facebook ad to the phone call to somebody picking it up. Like, it's very easy to see, like, oh, hey, they mentioned they saw this on Facebook, and the person knows that it came from Facebook. So it's very easy to track this. And there's a little bit more that was in the tracking that I'll get to. But back to the Facebook post itself, it was a Facebook post engagement ad that had 40 photos on it. And then here's really, I think, what made the campaign. So anybody, and I'm sure many people ran this, but what made this campaign successful was the promotion. And so the promotion and the hook was flat out the most insane car deal you could get that I saw in the market. So what they did was they had a very low down payment, like extremely low. And so all you had to do to get started in the process to buy a vehicle was have X amount of dollars and no credit check, no, like, you don't even have to have like all your papers right. Like, as long as you had $500 down, they would work with you to get you a vehicle. Now, that doesn't mean that you got the newer vehicles, that you got a nice vehicle. It was that you could get into a vehicle in one of these 40 photos, but they had a lot of inventory. They probably had hundreds of cars that were used that could qualify to that person looking for a car. But I think that is what made this campaign successful. But before I keep analyzing this, I'm going to keep going as to what else we did to make this campaign successful, or else what else we did to set up the campaign to be good, like how we found out it was good. So again, we put the X amount down, call now, let's get it going, right? So when we started off, I think the budget wasn't that much. It was maybe like $1,000 to $1,500. And within the first month, 30 days ran, a lot of calls came in, and we would listen to them. I'm not sure if it was hundreds of calls, but it was probably at least 100 calls per month for the first 2-3 months, let's say. And we would listen to the calls. We would say, hey, because you can hear the call. It said, hey, I just saw your Facebook ad. I'm interested in the promotion. What cars are available? What else do you need? And then what the salesperson would do is they said, yes, we do offer that. Come on in. What kind of car are you looking for? We'll help you find one because we have a ton of inventory that allows this promotion to happen. So we listen to that over and over. And when I say we, by the way, this is how many people it takes to create a successful campaign, whether it's by luck or by trial and error, right? Because that's what it was. It was trial and error. It was like we didn't know that it was going to work. We just kept trying different things until one hit. And the team consisted of me, right? The head of the marketing department. It was a very small team. And then another guy who had just started in the field. Like, so it's basically one small group putting it together. And like, when I mean small, I mean one person could do it. But it's good to have people, right? Because you can spread the resources. You can spread who does what, who sets things up, who listens to the calls. Because just listening to the calls, imagine every call is 5 minutes. There's 100 calls. 100 times 5 is, that's 500, of course, divided by 60. That's 8 hours. That can't be right. But anyways, it's a lot of time to sit there and listen. So we would like forward through the calls, and you can mark them as a lead or not a lead. And those first 2 months, what we would do is we would send a report to the client and say, hey, out of these 100 calls, 30 of them said they came in and were interested. Did any of these close? And so it got into an interesting space because as a marketer or as the agency, you want to know like, hey, is this actually working? But we don't know if it's actually selling a car. We know it's getting leads, but is it actually selling a car? And so the client is like, is it selling? So what they actually did is they gave us access to their, I don't know if it's the reporting, but just to like I guess let's call it reporting. And we got to match phone numbers to people who actually bought cars. So if their name was in the system, if their phone number was in the system and it had a mark sold in their CRM, that means that somebody bought a car from Facebook. Somebody found them on Facebook and went through the entire process and bought the car. And so once we got access to the information, it was months later too. Like for a while, we were just sending reports and just seeing, right? Excuse me. And so when we started actually being able to go see the full cycle of things, not just on the marketing, but through the CRM, it was like, wait a minute, they're selling 12 to 15 cars per month with this $1,500 budget. And to me, I thought that was crazy because it's like, you can sell cars from Facebook. That's when I was like, oh, like you can do anything. If you can sell a vehicle, which is like a 5-year payment plan that costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and you can do that with a $1,500 Facebook ad budget, like that's insane. That's when it's like, okay, proof of concept, proven. It's proven. Like that's it. Like it's done. Like there's nothing else to look at. This specific campaign and objective and creative works. So once we found that works, it's like, hey, Mr. Client, go ahead and give us as much money as possible, and we most likely will just increase the amount of cars sold. So what happened? I think the budget got raised to like 4,000 or 6,000 or something like that, and it literally just kept growing. So like basically at the best it was selling like 25 cars a month, 20 to like I don't think it ever hit 30, but it got into the high 20s, maybe 28, 27. So it was, let's say, roughly selling around 25 cars per month for like a year, and then at one point, things end, right? Like at some point, it starts. Other dealerships find out it works. It starts diminishing. But what's cool though is that like during this process is like sometimes people would call from like a house phone or their business line or someone else's phone, and we kept finding like there was actually a lot of missing. It's not always like 1 + 2 = 3. It's like sometimes what I mean is sometimes they'll call from a different phone, or they'll use a different name, or the person calling is calling on behalf of somebody. So it actually sold more cars than we thought. And yeah, so to wrap it all up, the most successful campaign I've seen on Facebook is a car dealership Facebook ad. I don't know if it's the most successful. It's one of the most successful. It's the one that comes to mind. And I think it was selling like 25 cars per month. I think and I really think what made it successful was yes, it was the right place at the right time. We're showing our ad to people who want to buy cars. By the way, in the targeting, it let you target people who were in the market for a new car. I don't even think that's a possibility anymore. It also lets you target people you could say, hey, I want to find people who have cars who have owned cars for longer than 10 years. Like you used to be able to do that. I don't think you can do that anymore, but you used to be able to do that. And so the targeting, everybody who most of the people that saw the ad were in the market to buy a car. That's already insane. Number two, the promotion was out of the water. Like, hey, for a little bit down, you can get any of these cars. And they didn't have to put that down. So it reached a lot of people. And then just having the appropriate budget to scale it up, I think made that a very successful campaign for a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I'm not even sure how long it ran. But from my experience, I was like, that was for me. It was like that was one of the campaigns where I was like, okay, like I always reference that. Like if you can sell a car via Facebook, via social media, and you can sell anything because Facebook. I mean, a car is very. That's a big purchase. That's probably like the second biggest purchase people make aside from home, like generally, right? And that's that one. Okay. So the next one I want to do is going to be for Google Ads. So Google Ads, if you're not familiar, you type in to search something on Google. One of the first things that come up is ads, then organic, then maps, or in some kind of order, local service ads. I guess back to the Facebook one. Facebook is still good, but it's not as easy as it was. It's still good. It's just every year it loses a little bit more unless they change something. And the point with that is like get in it while it's good. Like don't get in it when everybody else has done it. Like test it. Like if you're not testing it, it's like then you're gonna miss your shot or you're gonna ride the wave when it's on the way down, which is okay. But you could enjoy the wave because they'll end. They all end. They always end. Like TikTok's hot now, so like all these things are not as good as they were, but they still work. Okay. So the second one I want to get to is for a lawyer. We did Google Ads for them, like I mentioned. Somebody goes to Google, they look up lawyer near me, and something comes up. And the reason why this one sticks out in my head is because this is the first campaign I ever built that got a call. That's why I remember it so well. In itself, it was a decent campaign as far as, they got decent calls, decent clients from it. It was a campaign that worked. But it wasn't like, it didn't change their lives, I would say. It just added another channel for them to get business from. Slow and steady over time makes a big difference, but it's not like they woke up the next day and they had 20 leads and 20 new clients. It wasn't like that. But again, the reason this one stands out for me is because it's the first one I saw, kind of like the Facebook one. This is the first Google Ads campaign that I saw that I was like, this works. Like this absolutely works. And anytime you see those, it's just like once you see something work and succeed as far as like a campaign, it's like, okay, if it works here, then it must work other places. And this one's funny because it was the first agency I ever worked at where they were a traditional agency, but they wanted to move into marketing because, again, I guess this was like 2016 or something. This was still new. Like people just weren't using Google Ads. Like it was still a question like, does it work? Of course, I have not had that question happen to me in a while. Like I don't have to convince anybody. I just have to tell them how it works and the how's not should I do it. People know they should do it now. And so with this one, it was awesome because they had a client. It was a law client, and they're like, "Hey, we want to try Google Ads." And I was like, "All right, let's try it." So very simply, I got some landing page software because they didn't have a client. I think it was, what was it? Lead Pages? No, it wasn't Lead Pages. It wasn't Unbounce. It was something, Instapage. It was Instapage. I built a landing page for them, and all in a day. Then I got the call tracking, so I would know who would call. I set up the form submission, so anytime someone would submit a form, it would go to our email and the client's email, and then a very simple Google Ads campaign with like the main terms. So for the example, we'll say it's lawyer near me, lawyer in Houston. I'm in Houston. Lawyer that does X service. So it was very straightforward, and I don't remember if it was phrase match, exact match, broad modifier match. I don't remember the exact setup, but I remember setting it up and then saying, okay, hopefully this works. And it was like $20 a day. It wasn't even a whole lot. And so I hit the campaign to go. I published it, went home, woke up, came in, and I was like, I was actually really excited. Like, could anything have happened? At most, I thought, okay, it'd get some clicks, some impressions. That's pretty common. That's what you get. When you put money like in Google, they're gonna spend it. Like, they're gonna get you clicks. They're gonna get you impressions. But is someone gonna submit a form or is someone gonna call? And so I get on. We used CallRail, which is what tracks the calls. I got on CallRail, and there was like 4 calls, and I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, this worked? Like, did this really work? And so I listened to the calls, and it's like, hi, I'm calling because I need X services. Hi, I'm calling because I need X services. Hi, I'm calling because I have questions about X services. And I was like, it worked. For 20 bones a day, $20, you can have real people call you about your business and services. And it just absolutely blew my mind because it happened so fast. It was one day. And then, you can improve on the account. You can do a lot of things. But like the fact, and then the other thing that kind of threw me off about it is that it was a field that it's not that common. Like it was the specific area this lawyer was in. It's not like a common one. Like there's not TV shows about it. There's not you just don't hear about it. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then sure enough, you got all these calls coming in for this. And real quick on both these campaigns, they both did run in English and Spanish. So the demographic in these areas, which would be Houston, it did make sense to do both English and Spanish. So some campaigns, actually, I think both of them, both campaigns, industries, platforms, clients, they both had the ability to target both English and Spanish, and both of them worked. I'm not saying one performed better than the other, but if you have two people to target to, just target them, right? If your budget allows it, of course. And if you have people that can speak Spanish and English and you can do the process in both languages, just add it. Like that's a you open another door to get customers from. So that was that one. And again, there was nothing special about it. It was just going down the right path. Is choosing to use Google Ads, setting it up, and just doing best practices. There was nothing. If you study Google Ads and how to set it up and how it should work and do all the tracking right, like I'm not gonna say it's the easiest thing in the world, but you could go buy the book on that one, on this lawyer one, and it would work. So if you haven't gone by the book, like just do it by the book and see what happens. And that one blew my mind again because I was like, this really works. Like it really works for this kind of anomaly of a law client, right? Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is going to be the partner referral. So this one's going to be short because when I worked here, this is a different company I worked at. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I saw the growth that came from this company. And basically, I'm going to use myself as an example so that it makes sense. So Symphony Advertising is my company, right? And let's say I work with, actually, got my clients over there. Which one do I want to use as an example? There's an automotive shop, right? That does body custom painting, all that, truck accessories, cool stuff. Let's say that I'm in a network amongst these people and they say, hey, or I'm in that world a little bit because I have this client, right? And I work with several of them. I can go and say, hey, if you refer me a website client, if you refer me a marketing client, I will give you X amount off of your monthly services, or I will pay you a commission for that referral. And it was that simple. And with that strategy, I saw this company grow like hardcore. And I can't really speak too much about it because again, this is not something I set up, but I did witness that if you have a win-win kind of partner relationship, where like, hey, I'll give you X amount of money if you refer me people. Like that is just another way that you can try things out. And I have that as well, but not to that degree. For me, it's more white label services. So like, hey, we don't offer website services, but you do. So we'll give you, we'll pay for your services as long as you can white label it for us. So that's just another way of getting clients. White labeling is different. I'm talking about specifically partner referrals. So if you know suppliers, if you know business owners, if you know sales reps or stuff like that, you can set them up with a package where they will sell for you and then you pay them. So it worked very well. And I think that's like their number one strategy. And I will say like most of these, what I saw is like there's only one or two ways that really bring in most of the clients, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's the partner referral, whether it's the Facebook program, whether it's the Google Ads program, whether it's the influencer program. Like there's usually one or two things max that are bringing the bulk of the business. And so that's just the interesting thing that I've noticed. So that was number 3. Number 4 is going to be the influencer marketing. So again, this one isn't one that I set up, but I worked in the company. And I saw like that is how most of the sales were done. So this one's actually a little bit different. It's not local service based. This one was for a product, and the product was a pretty neat cell phone case. Let's leave it at that. And what they would do is they would send their neat cell phone cases to before this influencer thing was even a thing, the influencers at the time lived on YouTube channels and they would review people. So it wasn't even like these were influencer marketers. It was just we were sending cases, and that was my job. My job was to find YouTube review channels and send them free stuff and ask them to review it. They would not get paid for it, and we would not. It's not like we could say if you don't post it, you have to send it back. Like it was just like, hey, if you like, or if you can, please leave a review, or please do a review on this. And then we provided affiliate codes, kind of like the partner referral ones. So like if they sold any cases through their link, they would get a commission on that. Business calls. So that literally was about, I gotta say, like from what I could see from where the phones were coming from, it was like the bulk of, I would have to say like 90% of all sales coming that. The rest came from like Google ads, Facebook ads, Amazon, but where all the attention was, where all the awareness was that came from those for that product, it was from those people, from the YouTube affiliate. Because I mean, you can run, $2,000 and get, I don't know, 10,000 impressions on Google ads, right? Let's just say that, or Facebook ads. But if you have a YouTuber that's doing, 100,000 views per video, and then they do a video on you, I mean, that's just like, and then the person trusts them, right? I think that's why that works so well, because if the YouTuber or now, this TikToker, the Instagrammer, the whatever other the tweeter, that never was a thing. If they're trusted and the people that follow them listen to them, then the sell is a lot easier. The hard thing is getting that product or getting that service to that reviewer, influencer, to talk about it. So that is it. Those are the 4 most successful campaigns that I have witnessed that come to mind. I think there's a lot more than just that, but those stick out to me. Like when I think about these things, I'm like, okay, those were the first that came to mind. So anyways, like I said, this is the Local Service Podcast, episode 1 in the Symphony Advertising podcast, Symphony Advertising office. It's actually dark. I have a light here. This is new for me, so I'm really working on it. I actually so this is the first time, again, a little bit to talk about the podcast setup, is I actually got a mic this time with the little Zoom H6 thing. I have a Canon Sony G7X, as it says right there. I got this little light thing. So it's a little bit more, and I just think it's funny because I like, for my own selfish reasons, I want to document this. So my first podcast was called Apples for Lunch. I think I did it in like 2012, where my idea was for lunch, because I was working at this place, my first job out of college. I was like, for lunch, you could go and listen to this podcast and learn something. The idea being Apple, like, knowledge. For lunch is like, that's what you do for your lunch break. You can listen to this podcast and learn something. And I did interview people, and it was crazy. I actually had some people that like have huge followings, but I didn't stick to that very long because, I don't think I knew enough. It's like, what do you talk about if you're just kind of like hypothesizing? It's hard, right? The second one I did was actually 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. It's called Symphony Advertising Podcast, where I kept up with what I was doing, right? Like for my agency. So like, more marketing folk. It was kind of just, it didn't make a lot of sense. So this one's a little bit more focused, again, for local services. And I plan on doing 2-3 videos a week. Don't quote me. I do want to have a guest on every week, either a guest to interview on their business, or a guest just to bounce ideas off of. And yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for joining. This concludes episode 1 of Local Service Podcast, aka the Local Service Opera.